I don't think I'm scared of death.
Oh boy.
Many are familiar with the anti-science apologetics of Rice University chemist James Tour. But what is news to most is that his professional resume appears to be every bit as fraudulent as his preaching. He's always boasting about his papers, citations, and H-index, but due to his inexcusable behavior, his own colleagues have begun coming forward to expose how he lies and cheats to inflate these numbers, often committing plagiarism in the process. What follows is testimony from 3 colleagues who will outline this fraudulence in pristine detail. Enjoy.
So thanks so much for reaching out. It sounds like you have some interesting stories about James. Why don't you just go ahead and let it rip, I guess.
Sure. Let me start by sort of explaining why I'm doing this in the first place. So, I have a lot of ties to Rice University. I got both my bachelor's and my PhD from the chemistry department there. I was a postdoctoral researcher there under Nobel Prize winner Richard Smalley for a year. And then I was executive director of a National Science Foundation funded research center at Rice for 5 years. I interacted with Jim both when I was a postdoc and when I was affiliated with the research center. I've been following your video back and forth with Jim since you started it, but upon hearing the comments from Andy Barron in his recent video, I realized that I could corroborate or even expand on some of the stories he mentioned but didn't go into detail yet, and so I wanted to see about doing that. It's an interesting question, though, why I didn't speak up about this sort of thing earlier. Because it has been quite a few years since I've been at Rice. And the reason for that really says something about the sociological dynamic here. Jim is, or rather was, a powerful individual. Crossing him was considered by many to be a career-ending move.
It feels good to be back. Which is exactly what Sonic 2.0 said, reversing its death. Running out of battery, make a mid-air platform. The only thing that would top this clip off is a perfect landing.
I think it was near here. When I came up the mountain, I saw her. The princess was standing right here, Goro. And then she gave me this fancy mask to wear around. After that, oh, jeez. It's no use. I can't remember anything that happened after that. Ooh. There she is! Princess! Princess Zelda! We need to talk to you! It's dangerous.
Another one-time boss.
Huh?
Hi, my name is Dom, and welcome back to Top Gaming Plays. Don't forget to drop a like if you enjoyed today's video, and submit your clips using the link in the description. But let's get into it. If there's ever a clip that sums up the TOTK...
Yeah, how about using these conveniently placed Zonide flying devices?
And I'm excited to see those top ropes spin.
with a frick ton of fans and batteries.
Goro!
Love it when intended mechanics work in unintended ways.
Here, if we can't get higher up, we're gonna be in trouble.
As the war against Choke Crab rages on, the Korans have worked with Bizarre Builder on a weapon that could finally tip the scales in their favor.
It's attacking! Be careful! Got it,
Let's play a game. Try and spot the moment V-Sith regrets everything. Now? 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 Time for the prestigious build of the day. Graham calls this the golf cart. The paddles are slightly angled like a golf club. Like a golf club, its strengths lie in hitting things far. This was just unnecessary. Time for the prestigious
Coolest
build
thing.
of the day.
We can go inside the volcano now, and it's in the
I
chasm.
quite simply could not
That's so
pick between
cool.
them. This is Oshkosh Ganash's biting mechanism, and it actually does damage.
Since last time it was just lava. And there's no way to swim down. Now there's no lava, so there's no need to swim down.
I'll be damned if this is.
Also, this chasm is apparently the longest
It's a quick spin of the design if you
trip
want to try and build this yourself.
from the top to the bottom. Lots of crazy things have been done here.
What do you look for in a car? Speed, handling, height. Wait, height?
Oh. Shit.
Even
Shit.
the bibs are like, what the hell? Forget horses, Link is now riding on Cloud 9 with the ultimate suspension system. The potholes in these Hylian roads are no longer a worry. Quick toggle of the stick to activate the springs below, and you're off.
Thankfully, we don't need more than level
This is
1
probably one of the
fire
smoothest vehicles
resistance.
we've ever featured on the channel. It's just missing weapons. And then, in a stroke of genius, Professional Pool on Reddit left a comment. What if you added a stabilizer? Introducing version 2. Now this is one silky ride. Bobby Blue Holiday is on a quest to become the first player to collect 999 of everything without duping. This is his progress so far.
Bruh.
If, like me, your first question was, how long did this take? Then I have your answer. Over 1,500 hours. Just 6 Zonai, you can build a Zonai Segway. Using a technique called box smuggling. In short, it's a weapon that's in your inventory, but also present in your it causes some weird stealth that finds the rust. So it all starts with the construct block. These blocks have the same functionality as the Yiga Raft, but smaller in volume and has a large mass.
Huh?
Basically, has the blocks back in the lab, using the old left stick zero propeller trick to generate thrust without using power.
Come to me.
Huh?
Not bad.
Oh.
Vision 2 has the left stick on an angle, allowing it to move in a straightforward direction.
Yep.
Peter is smart. He uses a central steering stick to get the propeller powered up so he can climb hills without power.
Here I go! Charge!
Back on flat land, switch to the front stick and back to power.
Oh hey, marbled rock roast.
The V4 is a
Ah, I have a spear
this thing to the sky.
that isn't attached with anything.
That's a nice powerless flight. It's private TV. It's far for another.
It's actually quite sick looking. Pretty sure. Yeah. And cannons don't work either. It's only Yunobo who can break these things.
Goro! Let's
Okay, a Zonai shield. What are you doing with that? You don't deserve it. By the midpoint of the game, your inventory isn't filled with this weapon, I don't know what to say.
Sky Island Great Plateau was to Breath of the Wild. It's basically an extended tutorial section where you get most of the skills and abilities you'll use for the rest of the game. For the many years we've played Breath of the Wild, skipping the Great Plateau is always an innocent role. Unfortunately, the game strictly refuses to let you leave by causing you to void out if it detects you outside the Great Plateau before you can leave. So, Great Plateau remains unskippable. Shortly after starting Tears of the Kingdom and wandering around the Great Sky Island, my first thought was, I wonder if this is skippable. Given that the Great Plateau was impossible to skip, my hopes were not high, but I still wanted to try. A lot of the longer videos on my channel were the result of me trying to skip GSI. Mostly learning more about the glitches I thought would be helpful and realizing that knowledge could be useful in other ideas. So this is that story to the best of my knowledge. I've been working on and off on the same task for a few months in between videos, as well as I've attempted so many things it would take hours to really explain everything I've tried. First though, it's really important to me that you listen and fully understand this part of the video. Without the awesome people in the speedrunning Discord, and even the Hyrule Engineers Discord, I could 100% say I would have never gotten as far as I have. I don't just open Tears of the Kingdom and figure all this stuff out alone. So many people have put in a lot of time and effort finding glitches, and the majority of the time, I'm just a sponge. I use these glitches like puzzle pieces to achieve a goal, but without the community, I would have no pieces to puzzle. So if you're interested, please join. There is one person I would like to acknowledge that's had a huge impact on this goal. Their name is
There's just hydrants here,
a lot of his efforts
which aren't bad, but
within our region as
not necessarily all that good either. Oh no, never mind. There's zero.
It's much like Breath of the Wild. The game checks
The steering sticks and stuff are pretty good though. I'll put in a few more Zonai charges.
This is a pretty foolproof way to stop anyone from leaving GSI before it's complete. Somehow get Link out of the box. The first frame the game realizes it corrects it. In this video, I'll be hopping around between files that have already finished the Great Sky Islands and files that have not finished GSI. I'll be putting these markers in the top right corner whenever that information is relevant. The beginning of GSI Skip was probably a pipe dream in many people's mind, but I would say it mostly started to get some real effort behind it in July of 2023. This was due to the fact that when doing stuff out of bounds in the prologue, you can trigger a dialogue state while falling. Typically, you'd get voided out and return to the beginning, but falling through the void while in the dialogue lets you continue to fall all the way to the bottom. This is when I saw
You can't drift with the big wheels, but the big wheels have incredible handling.
Then can we text dive
Anyhow, so
achieve the same thing? Both Airgoal and I made some efforts to even get one text dive on GSI. But in the first few attempts, nothing came of it. And to be honest, I moved on to other things. Not that I didn't think it was possible, but I started to feel like it was unlikely. Later that day, Airgoal found out that these logs have a special property that allowed them to move during a dialogue, and that rolling these logs into Link while in dialogue can push him off the ledge. While this got you off of GSI, as soon as you finish the dialogue, the game figures out you've left and sends you right back. But the information that's provided is extremely good. We know that text diving is possible on GSI, and Link can exist outside of GSI while in a dialogue. Armed with this knowledge, Army Club used some cheats to edit Link's coordinates and warp them to an Army platform called in a text dive. The thought was if we could somehow get Link to Army while in dialogue, could we even trigger the fight? And if we could trigger the fight, would it void us out if we ended the dialogue? Aqua Club was able to trigger the fight and not get voided out. This was huge. Now we know that if we make it to the Army platform without voiding out, the trigger will take priority over the void. And then after making it to Army, we could beat the game. Connet had shared a video where it was determined that you didn't need to be standing on the platform to trigger Army. You could be standing or climbing anywhere in the Army trigger to start the fight. This led us to attempting to trigger the Army fight from out of bounds, which was found to be possible. So now we know that we don't have to be standing on the platform to trigger the fight, and we don't even need to be in bounds to trigger the fight. The next large discovery was the effect fuse entanglement has on an object while in dialogue. Let's take a few moments to explain a few of the major glitches I use in this video. Fuse entanglement is when you attempt to fuse an object to a shield, but change shield before the fuse is complete. This binds the state of the object to the shield, while still allowing it to be controlled as if it were a normal object. Key thing to note is that if you put the shield away or get too far from the shield, the object it's entangled with will also get removed from the world. Fuse entanglement opens the door to many other glitches. You can settle the shield by putting your back against a wall, and dropping the shield, switching shields, and dropping a new shield. This puts the
Big
shield
wheels
in
feel
limbo
small,
that's
but
either good
feel
or
slow, but there
interactive.
are ways to get
This
them to be
allows us to
faster.
smuggle this object into the past
I'm
through
not sure,
saves
but I've
or into
always
a brand new
used
game.
fans.
Zuckle
Always
Loaded
made me
Object
feel like I
Transfer,
was
or
making
slot.
them go
Slotting
faster
an
that
object
way.
allows for a new glitch called a recall lock. Recalling the slotted object and then loading a save mid-recall causes the object to be locked in place. This causes the object to be frozen in time until we use recall again, or put the shield in our inventory to delete it. These are the glitches that allow me to safely take multiple objects into a new game.
And attaching more wheels. Specifically, you can use a very simple aspect.
First, it didn't seem likely, is when he fused entangled the Zonai wing and attempted to ascend through it while I was in
Of
the air.
physics.
Eventually discovered
By
that
doing
non-Zonai
something like
objects
this.
would work, but Zonai devices will remain frozen during dialogue, so we have new information to add. Fuse entanglement can create situations that make text typing easier, and that this also opens up the possibility of using many different dialogues. At this point in the process, I would say I was still a little new to most of the things. While trying to be more fair with the boat, I got a little sidetracked on the Ultra Broken. Some of you may remember it as Wacko Boingo, but you may not understand why the name was changed. At first, Wacko Boingo was just some silly, maybe not too useful way to get across the map super fast. After some deeper investigation though, it became obvious that it was much, much more than that. Ultra Broken Flight is just one of the many things that can be achieved, but there are so many branches of glitches that spawn off this one cutscene that it has a document of its own, which is why it was renamed to Ultra Broken. Anyways, I got extremely deep into Ultra Broken. This is when I started messing with Ghost Glue. Ghost Glue is what happens when you attempt to glue an Ultra Broken object to any other object. It's constantly trying to get close enough to glue, but never actually does. While Ghost Glue was a known glitch, its limitations and uses were not yet known. What interested me about it was its ability to be separated, and regardless of how far the objects were apart, you could get them back together. Which got me thinking, can I create a platform that moves Link between 2 points? After a lot of research, I was able to transport.
It's a lot bulkier and definitely a lot more expensive.
The primary issue was applying
But the speed bonus is definitely worth it.
Fortunately, slotting each object we use in the build allows us to transfer it to a new save, regardless of what state it's in. This is when GSI skip became my primary goal. We know that text boxes will allow us to ignore the void map, so this will be the state we are in while we are trying to make our way to the army platform. This state is extremely limiting, to say the least, meaning that once we start the dialogue, everything that happens has to happen almost completely without our input. Given that I can create a platform that can take me off of GSI to just about anywhere on the surface, I first tried an
Alright,
idea
turning
that
kinda
if Army
sucks
can
with it
trigger via Link's
though.
presence at the end of a dialogue, is there anything else that
This
could be triggered?
reminds
Well,
me of
yeah,
a
but not a lot.
very
Both
important
of the starting quests for
factor.
Riju and Tulin are triggered by Link's presence. Unfortunately, you have to make it there twice. This is due to the fact that the button spawns if you get
When
too
making
close
a
to one of the 4 areas.
crawler like this.
Afterwards, though,
This is basically how people put in legs to their builds.
Afterwards, though. Earlier, when it was found out that you could trigger Army and not get voided out afterwards, I assumed it had something to do with the new boundary box around Army, and began to look to see if there was another one, somewhat like it. And yeah, mini games, house building, and the battle at Karkar Bazaar, among many others. Unfortunately, there's no way to trigger any of those events with Link's presence alone. My thought was, even if we get stuck there, maybe we can use it like a stepping stone, but unfortunately that was a demo. While doing some work with the Ghost Glue platform, there were a few issues along the way, mostly getting the platform to start moving at an easily manageable time, given that I was currently using Ultra Hammer Recall to break the lock holding the platform in place. Ergil suggested that I could put away the shield that the recall locked object was entangled with.
If I align them like this, this should be a lot better.
That gives me items, so that I have limited access to my shields and weapons, which in theory gives me 2 stops for the platform to move. So couldn't I just make a platform to head under the castle and get to Army? Unfortunately, the platform works best when it has line of sight, meaning nothing is
Hell yeah.
The platform can easily get hung up on objects. To make it through all this in 2 or 3 lines is impossible. While my hopes were high, the game had moments. Given that it was pretty easy to move Link from one point to the other, my main issue was finding a path to the army that wasn't extremely complicated. We have a lot of options for clipping, and if I could just clip underneath the depths, I would have a pretty unobstructed view of the army area. Clipping is the act of moving the normal collision Link has with walls, floors, and ceilings. We have many options for clipping, but only two provide us with a clip that's somewhat sustainable. Things like Hydro Clip are too temporary, and Infinite Height Clipping requires inputs that we can't perform while in the dialogue. So our options are Simple Overload Clipping or SDC Clipping. Both require a steering stick. Overload clipping is settling so much that the game starts to lose track of things, and getting on a steering stick in this state will cause the clip. SDC is when you fuse a tank with the steering stick. Then, drop the shield and attempt to ride the stick shortly afterwards. The downside to clipping using a steering stick is that it takes away some of the dialogues we can use. Most dialogues use an A press to get started, but since we are on a steering stick, that option is unavailable. Meaning we will need to use a dialogue that starts by completing the farm puzzle or bothering a construct. So I test every possible dialogue with both versions of the stick clip. Both the Korok dialogue and the construct dialogue would just freeze you mid-clip when the dialogue started, only to resume the clip after the dialogue is finished.
Ooh. Maybe I want this.
I begin to make the assumption that since the stick is a Zonai device, and Zonai devices can't move during dialogue, that must be the reason Link is getting frozen. Lido shared a video where he used the STC to clip into a cutscene trigger, and it continued to cause him to clip beneath the roof.
Yeah,
This
it's
was
fantastic.
good and bad news. The good news is we know it's not impossible to clip during dialogue. Bad
I
news
thank
is
thee
there
for
are
your
dialogues on
contribution.
GSI that start field presence. Given that I had already tested dialogues in GSI, I assumed that the clip needed to also trigger the dialogue in order for it to work. At this point, I started to get a little desperate. I tested if the steering stick was ultra.
Yeah, this machine is kind of absurd. It's amazing.
I posted a video of Gas Man blowing them and their horse into the depths. And that made them clip. But we can't get a horse on GSI, so I tried to replicate the same thing with a steering stick, and it didn't work.
I can't believe I'm only just trying out this vehicle now. I've seen other people use it. I've come up with it even before I discovered it. I didn't like how it controls, but once you get used to how finicky it feels, it's amazing.
It took over 30 minutes to fall all the way down from GSI, but I still landed on the ground. There's a large void-out space in the back of Hyrule. I began to wonder if there are any holes in the geometry that would take me to the depths, but it was practically impossible to search thoroughly. I definitely tried tech diving. Unfortunately, it always leads to a soft lock of Link before you pop up. So my pace is slowing down, but I get tagged in a thread about the success of stealing the Infinite minigame Wii. Mulberry had used some of the information in my Ghost Loop video to steal the Wii for the first time, so I had to see how he did it. Upon watching the video, two things strike me as odd. The Wii just moved a decent distance while in a dialogue state, and Mulberry had fell down the chasm while in the dialogue state. Normally, Zonai devices can't move during a dialogue. I say they can't move, but they can very slightly, so I attribute the movement to that. Text dive was probably just a coincidence, but then he steals it again, and Janeway for President does a video of them stealing it as well. There's no reason why this Wii should move this freely in dialogue. So I join in to help out and figure out what's going on. I completely ignore the obvious answer. It must be recall. It must be the weight. I keep testing because it would be pretty useful to learn how Zonai devices can move during dialogue, only to realize that it moves during dialogue just because it does. This wing has a different name than the other wings in the game. That's part of the reason why it lasts
Do I
forever.
have any axe
This
heads?
needs to be named something
Boss
else so it can
Bocos are
contain a different
axes,
tag
and
that
axes
allows
are
the
nice to
Wii
have.
Knowing this,
for
I
chopping
found a tag
trees.
that was in the list
Claymores
for
are the best
only,
choice.
but not for this infinite wing.
Although anything,
Maybe
as
physics
long as you're
falls.
using the correct
Maybe this
weapon
was the
type,
tag
can be an
responsible
axe.
for forcing the normal
Plus,
zone
there's
device
plenty of
to
Treyons,
trigger
which are
time.
just really
Choose a
annoying
list of objects that
enemies
has
to
this
deal
tag
with.
reference movement. I ask, can I get a list of objects that don't have this tag? I mean, what if there's another Zonai device that can move during dialogue? I check the list, and there's a steering stick on here. This stick is labeled O3 versus O1, so I just call it the O3 stick. There are only 3 in the game, and they are attached to these Yiga builds in the depths. Unfortunately, you can't just pull them off, but with a well-placed recall-locked cover stone, it's free. My assumption was that since the steering stick is a Zonai device, it would stop the clip and freeze Link. But if this stick can move during dialogue, then I might be able to clip down. I grab the stick and start to test. To avoid needing to go all the way to GSI, I just use this dialogue in the Terrytown race that can be started by shooting the build on the platform. I get both the normal stick and the O3 stick. I'm testing the normal stick as a control to make sure that it reacts the same way it does to this dialogue as it does to the ones on GSI. First I try to make it just move during dialogue, and it does. I attempt to ride the normal stick while in dialogue, and it freezes, which is to be expected. I ride the O3 stick and... wow, this is crazy. Now for the moment of truth. I attempt to clip on the O3 stick. This is it. I've done it. I'm gonna skip GSI. With all the factors combined, I know that if I use the dialogue that gives me access to the inventory, I can put a platform underneath
Look,
that I can then break and send to the army platform. I don't know where to go to trigger the fight, but I'm 100% sure I can figure that part out. I think that this clip would cause me to just fall through my platform, but once I reach the boundary for the depths, the sting will get deleted, and that will remove my ability to clip. I'll worry about whatever else I need to do when I get that far. So now, I just want to get to the depths by clipping through GSI and the surface. I picked this Korok because it's over water. The depths map is the reverse of the surface map, and all the points of water just happen to be out of bounds already. This allows me to drop beneath the depths and gives me a pretty direct shot at Army. So, let's give it a shot. You know, maybe it has something to do with it being a Korok. The Korok dialogue isn't like the one I used in Terrytown. It moves the camera away from Link, and that probably has something to do with it. But that's cool. I can still use one of the constructs. So let's just give that a shot. So what's weird here is that for the Korok, if I just ride the steering stick, it moves during dialogue just fine. But for the constructs, it doesn't. Even though if I'm not riding it, it'll move during their dialogue just fine. I redo the hours of testing with this new steering stick, which includes sending it to a new game just to try this
far
one
away.
dialogue. As unfortunately, once you get the battery, you can't do that dialogue again. So I can save just before I do it, try it over and over. But yeah, I get nowhere. I do see that this stick acts in some different ways, but nothing that lets me clip. At this point, I'm definitely defeated. I would estimate that most of what I've shown here is about 25% of my testing. I really felt like I was so close to clipping, and all I needed to do was find the right dialogue, but none of them worked. This is when someone mentioned that the
quite the
Korok
torque.
of Awakening was obtainable prior to the title cutscene. As soon as I heard that, I knew I could skip the title cutscene.
Wow, I am going in a very wrong way.
It was just me trying to cope with the fact that I wasn't feeling good about GSI skip, which is where some of these clips come from. Normally, if you can get on a steering stick and fly into the title cutscene, the stick freezes in place, and that causes Link to be stuck in place as well. But with the O3 stick, it
let's
doesn't
change
work.
courses.
We'll stay with it. It's cool, but it's pretty much me losing it after being so sure that I had it.
But maybe I'll go beat up that Talus.
I made my Halloween video and the title skip video. I started planning some other videos and ideas and just sort of put GSI on the back burner.
Let me go add
Free
some
cam
weapons
models
for
available,
this
so
thing.
I combined the one to make a video with that and the one to remake my old cost skip video. Currently, FreeCam only works on 1.1 and up, so I update to 1.1.1 and get some cool camera shots. Making the COG skip video took a little bit longer than I thought it would, but now that I have the FreeCam, I kind of want to check some things out that I've done before. First, I want to see what happens during the Korok dialogue, and it turns out that Link is cold during the dialogue, which is pretty interesting. It means that when using the Korok Seed dialogue to text type, Link is actually just invisible, or moving an invisible Link. But it's no use to us. The next thing I want to check out is the void behind Hyrule, just to see if there are any holes that have been used to fall out of bounds. And there isn't a single spot. I decided to do another test with the steering stick to see if I fall up high and hit the dialogue, would that do anything? I missed my shot. To be honest, I know it's not going to work, so I don't even try again. One thing I've been wanting to work on is this text slide. It looks pretty cool, and if I can somehow make it faster, then maybe it'll get used in speedruns. So I was gonna start a new game to make it to that point. I figured I might as well bring the stick with me to give that a shot. I arrived and I tried it again.
Okay.
I shot through this time, but again I'm frozen in place. I don't know what I thought would change, but it's been so long since I've tried, I rarely remember what I had to do to try. I've been at so many times with this text box. Once I get the battery, I'll start slowly falling down and I'll just be stuck out of bounds on the GSI floor. I get the battery text box and I start falling. No, I couldn't have. I must have already been out of the bottom before the dialogue started. But just to be sure, I'll wait till I land on the surface and see what happens. It takes about 30 minutes to hit the surface, so wait. Gotta wait.
Oh. The champions actually say quite a lot to you.
What?
Bruh, I wish the spirits still talked actually now.
But I don't know why it happened. I put in a lot of effort into
They say something when you're hurt, when you're in low health, and when you're fighting bosses. They also have special dialogue.
The same way. So what's different now? Maybe using the free cam is breaking the game in a way that allows it to work. Wait a minute. I'm on 1.1.1, and I've done all my testing on 1.0. I had some fears that updating might give different results, but I was so burnt out at the time I didn't feel like updating, and even attempting it, I was pretty sure it wasn't going to work. I've been using an autosave, so let me make a hard save and then load 1.0 and try again.
I only have one beam emitter.
So yeah, it appears that 1.0 is the only thing that's allowing it to work. Okay then, 1.1.1 is fine to be honest. So we can just go back to that. Before I get too deep into building a platform, I want to just text dive through the water and get below the depths. I'm on 1.1.1. Now it's acting like 1.0. I feel GSI skips slipping away from me again. What did I do differently? Maybe I did something on the save and that's what locked me out of it? Let me start again from a new file. And it works. So let's start from scratch on 1.0. And it works here too. Normally I wouldn't want to figure out why, but this is very, very strange behavior. Which will persist in one part of the game, it gets a little difficult to truly tell what's going on. And to be honest, I know how to flip now, and I don't really care about the why right now. But my two ideas are that it has something to do with maybe the fact that I failed hitting the fan on the first attempt, and the active SDC permanently scars the file in no noticeable way in instance. Or it has something to do with the difference between an autosave and a hard save that's messing with it. But this would explain why I didn't find it before. This is the easiest dialogue to test, and I have no idea the state of the file during all my attempts. So future trigger, I had to re-record some footage because I couldn't find the original, which means I needed to figure out why it happened to record it. and it's the hard save. Any auto save before or after the hard save on GSI will work fine, but if you load a hard save and attempt it, you will always get snapped back to the stick. Throughout all my attempts, I tried on both 1.0 and 1.1.1. I ultimately stuck with 1.1.1 due to the fact that it allowed me to have a few more shields zuggled before I started to overload the game. I tend to be around 10 to 12 shields deep with my builds, so having the extra headroom in 1.1.1 makes up for some of the glitches it doesn't have. Now for the drop below the devs. And yeah, I can get down there. This is really it. The only issue is this clip takes forever. It takes 30 minutes to get through the first surface clip and another 15 to get below the depths. I did a test just to see, and it takes an hour and 40 minutes to get from GSI all the way to the floor out of bounds below the depths. 45 minutes is nothing though if it means I can skip GSI. So this is the fun part, or at least it was supposed to be. I can't catch a break. Up until this point, I never really looked for the army trigger that was out of bounds, but before I made my first attempt, I immediately...
Alright, we're backtracking.
This is the army platform at the end of the game. It's all contained in this room, with no real way to get in from the outside. After defeating army, you can get back here to go to the Ganondorf fight. And the army trigger is right here. There's also a Void Out layer right here. The Void Out will destroy any object and Void Link out if he touches it. And the part of the army trigger that's out of bounds is... right here. This means I have to transport Link around the back side of army to get to the trigger. I also have to dodge the Void Out zone, because even though while Link is in dialogue he can survive through the Void, objects cannot. So I run the risk of losing my platform if I'm not careful. Honestly, I just want to make an attempt. Having Link anywhere near army is a huge success, so I'm just going to yellow it. I've placed the steering stick here so that I am over water. I get the coordinate of my stick and place my build underneath it. Since the shrines in Overworld share the same world box, I go to fall just below the depths.
My car!
Just gotta get out of bounds. There's my build. I set it up in the correct spot, and then go split my hoverstone and take it to the location. If you remember Ultra Broken Flight, I typically add a spare board to my build so that I can just fly my hoverstone to the location. But here's the fun part. I have to squeeze into this spot without going too far down to void out and destroy my hoverstone. I can't be too high or my camera starts to get hung up, but I have to get close enough to the trigger to put my stone in it. Not too close as to accidentally trigger the fight. Once the stone's in position, I'll recall lock it and head to a new game. To be honest, I 100% know this isn't going to work, but again, I just want to see the platform. I think this is where I should mention this. Now that I have a functional way of getting to Army, and at this point it's just trial and error, start putting on some self-imposed limitations. The first one is that I want to start from a new game. I want this file to be start to finish, and not return to the other save I used to set up. Second, this will be much easier if I grab one of the abilities. I mean, if I make it, I still have to fight Army and Ganondorf, so Fuse would be great, but I'm not going to. I see a path to the end of the game without any abilities and any shrines. Once I start the new game, I need a bow and an unfused copy of the weapon that I used to smuggle the steering stick onto the safe, because it won't let me pick up the steering stick without it. I get into position. I mean, I know where to shoot, but I'm still nervous. I only get one shot. If I hit the fan and miss the clip by not pressing A fast enough, then I get the battery, then
Alright, slopes seem to be the...
If I hit the clip and miss the fan, I'll void out.
Be a bit of a problem for this vehicle.
Use the stick to SDC again, so the attempt would be over.
We are gonna be crossing over some lava.
It's extremely stressful after
The
all
big
that
wheel
shot.
will still be very
Take the
useful.
shot, wait a moment, SDC? Got it.
Let me just readjust the way this thing works.
45 minutes.
I feel like I can get a better handling on this thing.
I don't run ads on my channel. Doesn't mean I don't want money. I figured merch is the best way to financially support this channel, but I wanted to provide something more than just a logo on a t-shirt. Even though I'll probably do that too at some point. This is part of a larger idea I have following the Space Cat theme of the channel. You can become part of the... And soon I'll be releasing monthly pins based on the videos on this channel, like the Decayed Master Sword or the Infinity Wing. For channel members, I'll also have limited special edition versions of each pin available to purchase or for free depending on your level. This patch is the start of funding that project, so I would appreciate your support. I only have 100 patches currently, but in the unlikely event I sell out, I'll order more. If you're unable to support financially, your subscription to my channel is enough, and I appreciate that. Now for the second tense moment, the clip through the surface. I don't know why, because I know it's going to work, but I still feel a huge sigh of relief once it happens. And then the third tense moment, which really isn't tense at all. The sound of recall breaking. This happens due to the fact that when we cross the threshold into the depths, the stick is deleted, but I've been through so much pain after hearing recall break in my other builds that I can't help to have my heart sink every time it happens. When it happens in other situations, it always means something important.
Here I
So, we make it to the platform. I'll have to put the shield away to delete my board. Here we go. It looks like I bounced off the side and Link was ejected from the build, but there it is, the army room. I can't really see the platform, but this is all I really wanted from this clip. From this point on, I only make serious attempts. Most of the testing in this part of the video is hard to show in game because it's mostly looking at a text box and gathering the limited information of bumping into walls and Link's final landing spot. I often had to review the footage and find like 1 or 2 frames where I could see something and try to match it up the best I could in game. So I apologize, but I'm going to have to lean on explaining with graphics. I'm not sure if the build I'm trying is going to work, but given the time invested on each attempt, I did want to have a random success and not be prepared to finish the game. At the start of my attempts, it took me about 1 hour and 30 minutes to set up, plus about 45 minutes on GSI, grab a bow, arrow, bombs, rupee. I make a ton of speed food, stamina food, and I grab an already fused weapon. To be honest, I was just taking my time and grabbing whatever just in case. Then, 45 minutes to drop from GSI. Now, how do I get to this point without too many collisions? First, I thought that if I built a better box, maybe I would bounce off a few times and it would still bring me around. I tried a few different options, but no real success. Link would either get ejected or the box would get hung up. During one of my tests, I was flying.
Alright, you know, I'm just gonna build a normal car.
I saw a tree just floating there.
I'm pretty sure those can handle slopes better.
I thought, that's the tree that's in the Void Out Zone in the army room. But if I can see that tree, then... But wait a minute. Only the non-ultra broken objects got. The wood made it in just fine, so this gave me a thought. Ultra broken objects survive the Void Out, then maybe I can go underneath. While making my Halloween video, I learned that the space underneath the army area doesn't void you out. So I go underneath and look up. This looks pretty promising. I test the ultra broken objects, the void, and yeah, if they are free call ultra broken, which makes them weightless, they don't get eaten by the void.
Here I go! I can do it!
That means the best place to start my journey is at the very bottom of the world, the floor beneath the depths. Which means it'll add a whole hour to the drop. It's crazy, but it is what it is. The only problem is getting through the testing phase and the time it costs to learn. At this point, it takes me 3 hours to get set up, and that's if I don't mess something up. After after a few attempts, I still feel like going under is a solution, but unfortunately I'm still hitting the outer wall of the area, meaning I'm getting pulled up too high before I reach the army area. I attempt to do the best idea I've ever had in my life. I need another stop, one that keeps me low, but also gets deleted when I arrive. It's an issue I've puzzled over for a long time, because multiple stops could make it a lot easier. Another glitch we should talk about is FE chain, which is just fuse entanglement with extra steps. If I fuse entangle a shield with a shield, then I can drop my shield and pick up the other shield, and with some careful glitching I can fuse another shield to that one. I can repeat that with an object. Now I have one shield that I can slot, which will keep all these shields and the object local to the world. This makes it easier for me to acquire the shield that I need to put away that will remove the board that locks my build. Otherwise I would have to drop my Zuggle, find the board shield, and then re-Zuggle all the other shields.
I can do it!
With this, I can grab this shield and use it to delete another shield, which will then delete the object. But if I recall lock that shield over the void, and I glue this shield to it, once this shield is deleted, the other shield will fall until it voids out and deletes another object.
Ooh, a boss
Aim
Boko.
this shield above the void out slope, moving on the platform, so that when I remove the shield to start my platform, it'll start a timer. Hopefully, I'll arrive at my first stop before the shield hits the void out in the object and letting me continue. I'm not gonna lie, it's perfect. It's what I would say if it worked. After testing, it does work really, really well. The void out zone is a loaded bomb at the very bottom. The shield just falls straight to the ground. My next idea is weight. This strength depends on multiple factors, mostly weight, distance, and game state. A dialogue state makes Ghost Glue much stronger, but that's just a condition we are working under and something we will not change. Distance is another factor that we aren't going to change, but it's helpful to point out that as you get further away from the destination, Ghost Glue gets weaker, and the closer you get, the stronger. This changes gradually, regardless of what state we are in. The last factor is weight. Ghost Glue's strength changes gradually based on the weight of the object it is trying to pull. Larger objects take more time than smaller ones. An object of 0 mass will make a straight line to the destination, but an object of, say, 100k mass will mostly drag on the ground. At that point, friction is a huge factor. Fortunately, the floor underneath the depths has 0 friction, so the object would still slide in its direction, but would probably never get pulled off the ground. My goal is to find an object that's heavy enough to keep us grounded up until we get close that it starts to lift us off the ground. And since the object I'm using for weight won't be ultra broken, it'll get eaten by the void when I pass through, giving me more momentum to my destination. So I tried the heaviest
this just a
object I
hot
could
spring?
find, and it's too heavy. I tried something 1/3 of that weight, and it's too light. So I tried this, which is somewhere in the middle. When I make it to this point, I'm still experimenting with the box that carries me, and I think, why not make the platform I land on bigger? So I make my box, add my weight, and try it out. I can tell I'm 100% at my destination, but I'm slipping and I don't know why. Should I wait till I'm standing still? Because what if I'm accidentally airborne when I finish the dialogue? But what if I fall out? Is the chance at all? Am I mentally prepared to fight army? Whatever, let's go. This is bad news. My last concern is something I've been kind of ignoring. What if something about the coordinates added into Army with a mod is something that allowed it to happen? It's definitely an outcome because we can never truly know if it works until we've done it in the game. But we can shove that bad thought where it came from, because there's one thing I've glossed over. I've been putting my hover song into the Army trigger, but I don't really know what it is. I like triggered the army one time and said, oh, I suppose I'll just put it here. But I haven't really measured it out. So I do that and realize, yeah, I'm a good bit off. So, another attempt. At this point, I've gotten my setup time down to 30 minutes, and my time on GSI down to about 20 minutes. GSI time is down mainly because I stopped worrying about being safe, and I just get my rupees and go. But I still have to wait an hour and 45 minutes for the drop. I get there again,
Here I go!
and no. I think I know the issue this time, though. My platform is leaving too much space for me to slide down and not be in the trigger. I need to go back to the smaller platform. Alright, I'm here. This might be it. I'm not sure if I should wait until I'm not sliding, but whatever. I'm done with this. Let's go. Oh, I'm here. I could pretend that I had like a very excited reaction to being in here, but honestly, my nerves just froze me up. There's something that we haven't really talked about. What am I gonna do now? To be honest, I didn't really think much further than getting rupees to fight the army, because I have a good feeling I can figure the rest out on the fly. There's one issue though. The army fight is a one-try thing. If I fail, I get sent all the way back to GSI. Normally, the easiest way to deal with army is by chucking a bunch of rupees. But the drawback to this is the explosion is so large, if you're not careful, you'll get caught up in one, and it's an instant death. I've done this fight a lot while I was speedrunning, so it shouldn't be too hard. But I've never done this fight on world record pace, and my heart is beating so fast, I'd imagine this is what world record pace feels like. There isn't much need to think about it, so let's just go. The Lizalfos are my worst phase, and if I'm a choke, this will be the moment. But I make it. The Gibdas are easy, and the Moblins are pretty easy too. Alright, he's getting a little close. I choked. I choked on arguably the easiest of the four phases. Well, hopefully the first platform wasn't a fluke. I get there another time, and I get out of rhythm on the Bokoblins, and they're chasing me around, so I just jump down where we normally go after army. I figure while I'm here...
Is it weird for me to say this is my favorite temple?
Normally you would need the ability will to do an infinite high clip. But I have zero abilities, so I have to try Zoaz, or Zuggle Overload Arrow Smuggle. I haven't messed with this version of Arrow Smuggle, though I've messed with the quick Arrow Smuggle in 1.2 enough to understand how to use it. Zuggle Overload Arrow Smuggle, or Zoaz, is when you overload so much that you have your weapons or your shields start falling on the ground. If you do this and change to a bow and the bow falls on the ground, you get into a position in which you can't shoot any arrows. This creates a pretty unique situation where if you're in the air and you try to jump attack, it'll cancel the jump attack on the first frame, but still give you the upwards momentum. Doing this while in bullet time is practically just like infinite height clipping, and will eventually allow us to clip into the ceiling without the ability wall. The Zuggling part is a bit difficult though. On 1.0, drop Zuggle is fairly easy, but on 1.1.1 you need a wall and some weapons to make this work. Given that I don't know a solid setup, I just have to try finding it by seeing it. But I have one really good advantage here. I have about 10 shields on my back from the platform, so I don't need to Zuggle too much. Once I get Arrow Smuggle, I slip it. I mainly decided to kill this attempt just to try to make sure that I have what I need to get to Ganondorf and skip the boss rush. I just need to clip one more time to get into the hallway, and oh, there's my platform. So I get the clip, and thankfully I'm here. Unfortunately, Ganondorf only spawns after I beat Army, so we'll need to come back and... Oh my god, Zuggle doesn't work on Ganondorf on 1.1.1. Well, I'm glad I remembered that. So I make a small modification to my setup to include the message not found sort with something already fused to it. It's been 8 days of attempts, and this one is gonna be my
It's
last.
Zelda, Goro! Huh? Huh? Huh.
Young Little Rock. The gate you must pass through is firmly locked with 5 padlocks. You have the power to unlock them all. Do so, then the gate should open. Heed my words.
Can't wait to talk about this dungeon and play through it next episode because I got a lot to say.
Huh? Hmm.
I hope it's safe to do this. I could be safe and just... yeah, sure. We unlocked the teleporter anyhow.